Hello, everybody. I want to thank you for joining. This is Paul Wagner. I'm the coordinator of the UAVs for Payload Delivery Working Group. Really excited about this webinar today. We'll allow time a little bit more for people to sign in. There's a few more people who are going to be joining us. But just as a little introduction, I guess, before Barry Koperberg begins, I just wanted to kind of give a little structure, a little overview about how we're going to run this webinar. First, Barry from Wings for Aid will present on their experience of their recent UAV payload test in the Dominican Republic. That'll take about 20 to 30 minutes. During that time, if you have any questions that come to mind, please just type them into the chat box. You should be able to find it there on the side within Zoom. And please just state your name and where you work. And then we can get to those questions after he finishes. And then, yeah, the rest of the time after the presentation, we'll keep open for questions. You can also just speak. Just please keep yourself muted during the presentation, but of course, unmute yourself if you want to ask a question after. But yeah, just a little introduction. Wings for Aid recently did a UAV payload test in the Dominican Republic. Barry Koperberg is working with Wings for Aid and is the founder of them. This is a really timely webinar. As most of you probably know, the use of UAVs in payload delivery is fairly new or nascent. A lot of testing is underway. So any information that we're sharing about how to plan for, how to set up UAV tests is really helpful for everyone who's involved in this. So really grateful, Barry, for you to be willing to share. And I'll give it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for this opportunity to share what we did in the Dominican Republic. Is everything working? Can you hear me?
Yeah, everything is great. You sound great.
Okay, perfect. And the screen is filled with the presentation, I hope?
Yep, it's there.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Pleasure to see many people join here. We had the exciting opportunity to work in the Dominican Republic to realize our mission. And first of all, I want to thank our friends at the German Aerospace Center and at the World Food Program who made this possible. First of all, the agenda for now. I'll give you a general overview of why we went about to do this project, the key characteristics of it from a technology point of view, and our approach. And then after discussions with Paul, also some specific topics and potential learnings for this working group on clearances for equipment, stakeholder involvement, and UAV testing environment preparation. And I will say a little word about the SORA methodology. Like Paul said, a lot of room for interaction afterwards. And also we at Wings for Aid are very curious to hear your comments as we are looking for more pilot projects to start with. First of all, why do we do this all? We do this to bridge the last mile in humanitarian logistics. I mean, we work with the World Food Program. Their estimation is still every year 100 million people in need of humanitarian assistance, 20% of them in hard-to-reach areas. And the Wings for Aid Foundation strives to bridge that last mile by the use of, well, let us say, modern airlift capacity, namely cargo drones. So we strive to have nobody out of reach for humanitarian aid. Here you see the picture of Haiti, where they built the bridge first, and the next earthquake, the bridge is gone again, which is kind of a metaphor for last mile delivery problems that we all know so well. Wings for Aid brings another type of airlift in addition to the great things that World Food Program can already do. Like large airlift capacity is already available, but the problem is that if you have a widespread operation and you need to go to many separate places, that is difficult. You have the great initiatives like Metronet and Zipline and the like, but they still cannot deliver large quantities of goods. So that is where we want to bridge the gap to begin with. Now I have problems to go to the next slide. Let me see. Something popped in here, Paul, into my screen. I need to get rid of it. No.
Nothing?
No. Shall I do a new share?
Yeah, try that.
Ah, there we
Oh,
are.
there you go.
Here is the equipment we used. This is a drone in use for scientific purposes at our friends of the German Aerospace Center. It is a modified Swiss drone, and as you can see, we have mounted a Wings for Aid delivery system, actually to test one of our carton delivery boxes. More about that later. Ah, it works. So here you have some technical details to make all of you aware of what we are working with. This is an unmanned helicopter with intermeshing rotors, also to prevent a lot of downwash. It is a fully autonomous flight, including start and landing. So we speak of a pre-programmed and obviously authorized routing, and the full flight is automatic. DLR has added special safety measures like a termination link, so that it will always stay within the defined and cleared area as agreed with Civil Aviation Authority. That is something that the German Aerospace Center added themselves. The gross weight of the drone, it is a sizable drone. It weighs some 85 kilometers, rotor diameter some 3 meters, and it can fly for 1 hour. So that means that such equipment can bridge some 30 kilometers and fly back approximately, which makes it ideal to test our delivery box and fits in our roadmap towards bigger equipment that we are working on. So then we get to the customized dropping mechanism and landing gear. We have built the release mechanism for our box, which is triggered manually, radio controlled. So that is not pre-programmed. I get to that later. It is for safety reasons. And the whole thing, the dropping mechanism is independent from the helicopter avionics system, also as a measure to avoid interference. We are part of the World Food Programme Innovation Program, their accelerator based in Munich. We had fantastic sessions with them, also including the country office of the Dominican Republic. Great people to work with, and they built some experience already with smaller drones to make imagery. Obviously, the area is hindered a lot by hurricanes and so forth, and now they wanted to go for cargo drones. Here you see an image of a flooded area, and in the top right you see the 2 areas that were identified where we could simulate real life situations. It is in the east of the country, close to the Haitian border, and in the northwest. Both areas face severe flooding almost every year, and almost every year they face last mile problems. So we had a very good place to work and really test the whole system. This is what we actually did. Thanks to DLR for this slide. On top, you see the helicopter mounted with the box. We had in 2 weeks where we took approximately 1 day for setup, and we had 5 flight days in these 2 locations. We crossed distances up to 6 kilometers because of radio limitations. We always were in radio line of sight. We had 19 flights with a total flight time of 4.5 hours. And obviously important, it was beyond visual line of sight, as agreed with the civil aviation authorities. Flight speed, some 15 meters per second, up to a wind speed of some 25 to maximum 30 kilometers per hour. So not the robust system as you wanted in the end, but nice for humanitarian aid to test. We performed 17 drops. Some of them went wrong. We really learned a lot in the field. You never know how it is. I mean, everything had to be produced for this pilot. We made some modifications in the end. We had a 100% success rate. And then very important, what we add to the humanitarian sphere, if you wish, is we carry a maximum payload of 20 to 22 kg per box, which is some 200 to 300 meals if you put high energy biscuits, which is an important requirement of the World Food Programme to supply whole villages of food. one of the topics that I would like to go into is the clearance of equipment. As you all know, everyone with experience with pilot operations in drones, import and export can be a nuisance. Also for us, this is sizable equipment. It is also dual use equipment, so you have to align quickly. And I want to share some things that we did. For us also, this was a learning by doing exercise. First of all, we made an alliance with a logistical partner because this is new. Documentation needs to be perfect. You have a whole chain that needs to connect of freight forwarders, airlines, etc. We found Rhenus Logistics, a German company, willing to support us in this, and that has been of great help. One of the things they helped us with was to make comprehensive packing lists and something as practical as reference labels, so that throughout the whole project and throughout the whole logistical chain, anyone can trace any piece of equipment, whether it is tooling, whether it is radio equipment, whether it is dangerous, whether it is civil, whether it's military, etc. So there was a comprehensive packaging list and also reference labels per item, which turned out very important for customs inspections and so forth. Another important thing was the handling of the dangerous goods. Obviously, there are some dangerous goods inside. You have sizable batteries. You have residues of fuel. This is obviously not a drone that runs fully on electricity, but on normal fuel. So we had certified packaging by SGS, which also in the whole chain plays an important role. If you're not careful, your equipment is stuck for days because some of the boxes have not been ticked correctly. We positioned this as a UN operation, again with the help of the World Food Programme, and maybe afterwards we can have a little bit of discussion on this. Very important was that we packed the whole thing at Schiphol Airport, so in the European Union. So there was an airway bill and all the documentation, as I said. But then on the other side of the ocean, people already started to write letters with all the documentation to the customs authorities, what was coming. And we ran these two processes in parallel. So first, make airway bill and all the documentation. On the other side, start to prepare letters and making necessary phone calls so that everybody is ready to receive this, which was essential. And then, as you see in the pictures, here you see our equipment standing in the warehouse in the upper left. And then below you see us working very hard for the custom clearance, because obviously you think everything has been pre-cleared, but of course it isn't. You get into a situation where you still need to explain everything because everybody is extremely careful with such equipment. And what I want to share is that what made a big difference is that we had pictures of all equipment, and also we had videos of what we would do with the equipment. And it turned out important because this is so new that nobody actually knows what a drone is. I mean, some people ask it for Christmas. These are small drones, or they have a military association, whatever. So you see that people have strange associations, and also people at customs are also people. So what you need to do is really help them to understand what is inside of the boxes, what is the use, etc. And it really helped to have these pictures. And here you see us working, presenting even videos of what we would do with the equipment, which was quintessential to make everybody aware of the real use. And then finally, after a day of hard work, everything was released. You see me shaking hands with the freight forwarder, and everything was released into the country. And on the way back, we had exactly the same. So we can have a chat later on how to do this further, because I think it can really enhance such operations. And we all want to build experience with this, I think. Another topic that I want to endeavor upon is the stakeholder involvement. We all know that it is important to talk to people. And in this case, especially in humanitarian assistance and bridge the last mile there, you have a very, very wide audience and a very wide stakeholder network. Obviously you have the difference between civil and military. Both are involved. You have the international organizations, so the UN in various forms, the country office, the central office, the aviation department in Rome. You have the connected NGOs like Red Cross and all others. You run into ICRC, IFRC, etc. The local people responsible for roadblocks, crowd management, and what have you. This is all very new technology. Everybody wants to know everything about it and comes to look. So local was very important. And then, of course, the beneficiaries. You would almost forget about it, but of course that is quintessential to get their reactions. And the whole mission was documented also by video. So we hope that at some point we can make a movie out of it and also share like all the reactions of the beneficiaries, which were extremely positive. And then you really have footage from the field of how people react, which was one of the key points that we wanted to realize with this mission. Some learnings we had that I would like to share. We defined a core team within the stakeholders, which consisted of WFP, the German Aerospace Center, Wings for Aid. And then we made several layers around it and agreed upon who would receive what information and when. And everybody sticked to that same schedule so that everybody was included, but not too much included within the inner circle. So the core team and then several layers around it. We performed pathfinding missions without equipment. We learned this from our military friends. They always go somewhere first without any equipment, talk to all the stakeholders, involve them, tell everybody what you're going to do, adjust based on their feedback. And it was so important. Here on the top picture, you see the logistical coordinator of the World Food Program in Dominican Republic, Davy Roya, telling about the high energy biscuits that I just mentioned. And here he is in a room with all local stakeholders, explaining the whole story. So to make that as wide as possible was extremely important, apart from obviously all the technical things that you need to take care of. One of the other things is when you plan on a mission, in our experience, either we cannot plan or with us everything always goes different. What really helped is that we agreed not on a very precise agenda, but on a headline agenda and on the essence of it. And everybody within the core team had that agenda and everybody in the layers around it knew about it. So really based on essence, what we would realize and the headline so that we could change during the whole project. In the left one, you see the safety briefings every morning for everybody involved. And you see the wide variety of people participating. You see the flight crew, Red Cross, military, World Food Program, and also the Center for Emergency Assistance of the country, COI. And also the Civil Aviation Authority participated for 2 weeks of the full mission, which made authorizations very timely and effectively. Then obviously we briefed all military forces. Here you see some colonel with his son, where the son then does the translation for the father, which is fantastic to see when you work in the field. Always these great things happen. And on the right you see the Red Cross volunteers getting to a box that has just been dropped from 100 meters. So to knit this whole network is, we think, as important as all the technology in the world. The last topic I want to share is the testing environment. We went for preparation, the specific operational risk assessment that you all might be aware of, closely connected to the JARIS working group, and with the German Aerospace Center in our team. Obviously, they brought the latest insights, and we tested the latest methodology, and Wings for Aid is a strong promoter of this specific operational risk assessment, which provides a lot of opportunities for safe operation for humanitarian operations of drones. We were in a preparation process, of course, always starting from the needs in the field. You see that in the upper left corner. A representative of the country office sitting with Google Maps, indicating the areas where really things go wrong, where also the community is involved and can experience what difference drones can make. Next to it on the right, you see us on the pathfinding mission after our desk research, testing this in the field with all the stakeholders and adjusting. In the next one, with the driver in front, we planned everything and checked all the GPS locations, connectivity, accessibility, roads, safety, and what have you. That you also see to the right, where you see our friends of the Aerospace Center, like Johan Douwe and Jan and Jörg, inspecting every helipad, everything for safe operation, blocking of roads, etc., which was also quintessential for alignment with the civil aviation authorities. Obviously, this is too large a drone, at least from our perspective, to fly over populated areas. And also we decided to block all the roads so that always the drone would be above very scarcely populated areas with a minimum of risk of someone being present there. On the bottom, you see the alignment with the civil aviation authorities. All the lines you see and the circles are the flight path. And on the upper or in the bottom, you see the permits that we got to fly, which were then also combined with daily authorization to check for all the routes. One word on the SORA methodology. We assess the risk in the operation, so not from a general perspective, but really precisely for that specific country, in that specific landscape, with this specific equipment. And then we derive the means to assure safety. That is really a different philosophy than normal in conventional aviation. And we are very happy with the JARS working group working on this. Because you can be specific in your operation and you really can push the agenda of working with the drones. Obviously, you always have to align with the civil aviation authorities, who then have sovereignty over the airspace. So if they're okay with it, you can fly, which we did. Safety measures are obviously most important. One of the things we did, we flew beyond visual line of sight, but within radio line of sight, which was approved by the authorizations. That is why we stick to the 6 kilometers to avoid any relays. So we had a single one-to-one point radio connection with the drone, including the installed termination link that would cut off the fuel if the drone would risk to get out of the predefined area. All flights were up to 100 meters, not any higher. And before every flight, we aligned with the aviation authorities where any flights would be near. So there were no NOTAMs to all flights. But obviously on that height, that was not a big problem. As for the dropping areas, we did have visual observation. We didn't automate that. There was always one official officer from Wings for Aid, trained and briefed in connection with the Red Cross organizations and the local authorities to observe the dropping area, and also at the roadblocks there was personnel present. Very difficult, if not impossible, to automate that. If you want to ever scale up, that is a big issue. How to organize that visual observation by certified and trained personnel. For small scale operations, it's easy to do. But if you want to scale up, this is one of the big hurdles that we have to think about. Now, after this story, where am I? Some 25 minutes. I want to try to show you this movie. It worked, so hopefully you can see the screen moving. Here you see the helicopter taking off with one of the boxes carrying 20 kg of biscuits. This is a fully automated flight, so everything is pre-programmed at a speed of some 30 kilometers per hour. And here you see the release of the box. The wings unfold. There's no parachute. The box is its own parachute. And here you see us handing over the box to the World Food Programme and then to civil defense, who would hand it over to the beneficiaries. So we included the whole chain so that everybody was aware. And here you can see a big group of people involved and also being extremely happy when everything worked well. Next steps towards our scale up, just as a small update for you to know. Wings for Aid will do some reporting internally to our donors. The World Food Programme Country Office, the World Food Programme Aviation Office, and obviously the Innovation Accelerator who made this possible. We learn and adjust our own roadmap for our own Wings for Aid mini freighter, which can carry 100 kg over 500 kilometers. We learned some things and we will make some adjustments. Very much looking forward to your feedback because we are looking for other pilot projects. And obviously we keep sharing the experience as we do now. So I think I can speak for the whole group standing here, thanking you for your willingness to listen to this and very much looking forward to interaction. So over to you, Paul, to moderate this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Barry. Thank you for all the detail. This is definitely very helpful, and I think definitely transfers over to other applications of UAV payload as well in terms of health, supply chains, et cetera. So this is very, very helpful. Yeah, we'll open up to questions now. If you can type it in the chat box, which we do have one question we can start with. But also if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question too, that's great. When you do so, please just introduce who you are and who you work with, just so we know who you are. But the first question here, Barry, is from Eric Klunder from Linden International. They're a freight forwarder. And he asks, does your drone or parts of your drone fall under the munitions list of ITAR regulations? The reason for this question is that you mentioned dual use items of concern in shipping and customs process.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric, Mr. Last Mile himself. Thank you for the questions. The parts of this particular drone that were under dual use were the additional fuel tanks. So the whole thing in itself was not on the munitions list, fortunately. That would have made it more difficult again. So it was more the capacity to fly far. So we imported and exported those things apart from it, and not as one set. I hope that answers your question.
Hey Barry, this is Olivier from Village Reach. Can you expand a little bit on this? I'm not quite familiar. So what does that mean? Do you mean that you ship in different sequence, different parts? Can you, maybe this is a naive question, but I'm not at all familiar with this process at all.
Oh, that's fine. It is not the most important for this particular project, since we actually did not need the additional fuel tanks. But one of the things to organize this is to have separate authorizations, and that you actually split the shipment, especially for identification purposes. So when you get into the large discussion of dual use, so that your equipment could also be for military use, country by country, there are specific lists where you have to look into, and make sure that you pack everything according to standards, get the right approvals, and so forth and so on.
I see. Thank you for clarification, Barry.
Of course.
All right, this is Paul Wagner again. I just had a question more about for the time budget that you had for how long it would take to import everything. How much did you actually budget for how long that would take, and then how long did it actually take from start to finish?
Yeah, thank you for that. The budget was sizable for the equipment. Obviously, this varies country by country, and we decided to airlift all these capacities in 4 sizable boxes. I think we budgeted in time some 1 week for this to get from Germany to the Netherlands and from the Netherlands to Dominican Republic, so to the Santo Domingo, and we did it within time. So we delivered it to Santo Domingo within some 4 days transportation through Belgium. And then it took us one unbudgeted day to get it through customs, where you saw the pictures. Budget-wise, it really varies. I think we spent between 5,000 and 10,000 euros alone on airlifting the equipment. And Rhenus Logistics has spent many hours on getting all the documentation right and sponsored that, which was extremely important for us. So the team in the Netherlands had a full briefing on all this documentation and also the packaging of the dangerous goods, and also how to handle that in the Dominican Republic. Now that really helped. That is why I said it's so important to have a good logistical partner close to you within your coalition, at least for a small organization as Wings for Aid, to learn. Time, it was 1 week going, 1 week back. On the way back, we knew the people so well, and they knew us so well, that we did it within 3 days. And that was including clearance. Actually, the equipment was back in the Netherlands before we were. So everything was handled very well, and you also see the learning curve of all the people involved. Actually, you educate people on what it is that you do, on what is a drone, what is the regulation. So I foresee that country by country, also all the customs officers will know more about the use of drones, last mile issues, and so forth, because they always look at what is the equipment, what is the use. And we really saw a learning curve here.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Adam Curry asks a question. He says, why the choice of a single rotor platform rather than multi-rotor? Simple availability of options for performance requirements, or thoughts on trade-offs between single and multi-rotor in general?
Yes, thank you, Adam. Obviously, we have many discussions about this, sometimes over beer, sometimes not. This specific equipment, first of all, you have the electrical equipment and you have the fuel-based equipment. For Wings for Aid, in particular, it is important to have fuel-based because it is difficult for us to organize charging capacity in areas where we want to depart from. That makes us very different because we go for humanitarian response operations, and it is difficult for us to organize electricity. At least charging capacity. So that cuts off all the interesting electrical options for the moment. So we look for conventional powertrains, and hydrogen in combination with fuel cells is still in an infancy and only military grade standard. So we have to go for conventional fuel. Then obviously we like fixed wings better than rotary wings because they're more efficient energy-wise. They have the downside of less precise dropping, but they consume much less energy, and are also easier to maintain. Well, taking all this into account, for this particular test, we used the dual rotor system of Swiss drone that has an acceptable downwash, so it does not interfere so much with our dropping process of the box, and it is more or less energy efficient. It would consume, I think, I would have to look at my notes, but some 9 liters per hour, I think, 9 to 12 liters per hour. So that is acceptable, but I would need to check that figure with DLR.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Phil Maxon, also from Linden International. He says, why drop the box from 100 meters? Seems it would be better if only a few meters above ground when delivering payload.
Yes, thank you. We can. We can deliver from a couple of meters, but then the wings would not deploy. So we need at least some 30 meters for our wings to deploy. So our minimum is about 30 meters. And then we just tested everything now from 100 meters. because then we could agree with the civil aviation authorities to keep one flight height, which then prevents the drone moving in the airspace. And also if the box performs well from 100 meters and everything inside is still intact, there is a crumple zone inside that makes that happen, then obviously we can also drop from 30 meters. Now the next question could be, why don't you land? Because this equipment can obviously land. We don't want to land because ultimately we want to be able to work in situations where there is little or no personnel on the ground that can look after the drone. So we want to really keep it airborne, drop it, and immediately go back to speed up the operation and prevent anything happening to the drone. But of course, there's no technical limitation. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Barry? Okay, all right, well.
Sorry, this is Olivier from Village Reach. Are you thinking, Barry, of maybe producing a guideline document around importing and exporting drones, and based on your experience? I think that would be something that can be very helpful for a lot of partners in this space, and this document can be potentially be a work in progress and evolve as people get more and more experience and can contribute. It doesn't have to be just Wing for Hate document. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about producing such a document?
Well, not yet. For the moment, we just build the experience. But obviously, in some working group, we could share what we know and put our learnings on paper. More than willing to do so. It was not in our plan yet, but if we have a small group of people to get that done, I'm sure that with the help of Reines and Wings for Aid, we could help and share this. Obviously, it's always for whom and how long and how short, and what you can really do with it. Also, we like to team up with partners where we can maybe learn from them and get into new projects. Meanwhile, sharing what we have learned here.
I think we can maybe take that offline later on. But I think it would be, like, for example, USAID and Chemonix has recently published a guideline around, selecting the right drone for the right use cases. And they came up with a 3 to 4 documents with, key questions and things to think about, just to help all of us that who do the similar type of work going through the process. And so I just thought that, a similar document around export of a drone for this kind of mission would be great.
Yeah, I mean, more than willing to contribute. It brings me to one other topic that we want to investigate: this whole process of pre-clearance. It is a non-technical matter, but in humanitarian aid, one of the big showstoppers is always customs, not only for the equipment but also for the goods. One of the things we would like to investigate, but then we would need other partners, is whether we could go for pre-clearance also of emergency items. So you ship something from Puerto Rico or even, any of the central storage places. Could we imagine that the receiving country would authorize that already by the use of modern technology, internet, cameras, inspections, and build a system of trust around it? We think that apart from the airlift capacity, that could really take 3-4 days out of any process of delivering help. It is a little bit far-fetched for the moment, I know, but we want to work on that. And maybe to work on such a knowledge document and paper, could maybe put that on the agenda a little bit. So that is an extra incentive for us to contribute.
One more question from Wamaitha from Village Reach. She asked, did they use the flight videos during the stakeholder engagement community sensitization, or do you do two different focus groups before and after the flights?
I don't know whether I really understand the question. We use the videos mainly for professional stakeholders, and with the beneficiary groups, we demonstrated almost the whole project. So we gave them live briefings with the team and with the drone and everybody around it. So no use of videos, but the real stuff. And then had them present in tents at the delivery site. And then after every drops, we did interviews with the beneficiaries, what they thought about it, what their reaction was, and how it could connect to situations that they had experienced before. That is how we approached it. But maybe I didn't understand the methodology that you referred to.
I think that covers it. If not, Wamaitha, just please let us know. Another question from Marco, a master's graduate student. He says, how does the inside of the package load look like? And any damage? Could you use other goods in these flying boxes as well?
Yes, you could. The box is 60 centimeters high. And in the bottom, you have a carton crumple zone of about 15 centimeters, 1.5. So the center of gravity is in the middle. We did tests with blankets because that is something we need to deliver also. And it works perfect when you put 10 kg. If you put less and there is wind, then it gets less precise, obviously. So basically, we can transport any item. We tested it with water earlier, which works. We tested it with biscuits, which works. And what we are about to test it also with batteries, which is a requirement from the Red Cross, and also with a very small generator. So like ICRC normally says, you have to transport anything from needles to generators into the field. So normally for Wings for 8, it is first blankets, second water, third food, these biscuits, and then other items like batteries, charging equipment, small generators. And one of the other things we are thinking about is inflatable boats, for instance. It's not really core business of Wings for 8, but if you have a Coast Guard, it would be nice if they could put an inflatable boat if someone is in need in the water. Such kind of items we could all fit into our delivery box.
Great. Okay, anyone else have any other questions for Barry? Okay, well, this was a fantastic webinar. Thank you so much, Barry. I really appreciate you putting this together. Also want to thank you for all the participants. I will be sending out a recording of this presentation along with a PDF copy of Barry's presentation. So if you're not part of the working group, please send me an email. I put it in the chat box and I can get you a copy of this webinar. But thanks again. Thanks so much, Barry. And
you're welcome.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Paul.
Bye.